Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt Beausoleil. I'm a culinary advisor, cook, and TV personality from in different kitchens across the country, French embassy, different restaurants, and all, as well as TV appearances on the F Word on Fox with Gordon Ramsay, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, MasterChef Canada, and several other ones in French as well. 2 years ago, I had the pleasure of and the opportunity to create my own TV show called Takinabite Ottawa, which is available on Bell 5 TV1 on demand across the country. And this show is kind of a spin-off of that show. The idea was to bring leaders, influencers, main people in the industry, food TV personalities together, share some good stories, share some positivity, talk about some of their background, and allow people to meet people that they didn't know, or if they did know them, know a bit more about them, and also drive a bit of attention to the current issue that we're facing in the culinary industry across the world. So that was the purpose of this show. So tonight's show, I have the opportunity to greet my guest, which is Bob Blumer. One of my biggest influencers actually for my passion for food TV, which I don't know if he knows that, but growing up, I watched lots of your shows. So Bob Blumer is a gastronaut, which I love that title, and he's got an adrenaline addiction. Sorry.
Amongst his many addictions, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one though. He's definitely a thrill seeker. So he's created and hosted 3 award-winning TV programs, which I'm sure most of you guys have seen. They have aired in 20 countries: Glutton for Punishment, World's Weirdest Restaurants, and the pioneering Food Network series Surreal Gourmet. Written 6 acclaimed cookbooks and broken 7 food-related Guinness World Records, which is pretty awesome. Bob was born in Montreal, Canada, Quebec, Canada, might as well say Quebec, and holds Canada close to his heart. He's an ambassador for Second Harvest in Toronto, personally raising $250,000 for it and several other noble causes, which is awesome. Thanks for that. And in June 2018, Bob donated a $170,000 truck to the organization, paid entirely from money raised from his personal auction lots. When he's not traveling for work and pleasure, which is most of the time, the transplanted Canadian... What's that?
Used to be.
Yeah. Not right now. That's on hold. The transplanted Canadian cycles daily in the canyons near his home in the Hollywood Hills, doing his best to stay in shape for his next big adventure. And on that note, Thursday night, I had Ned Bell on my show. So Ned is a good friend of mine. I actually cooked with him a couple of times, and I cooked with him at the French Embassy last March. And he says hi. He said you joined him for his cycle across Canada, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was an amazing adventure. But he went from coast to coast, from Newfoundland all the way to Vancouver.
Right.
And I joined him for one leg through. I was in the process of pitching a show in which I wanted to cycle and eat my way across Canada, and I wanted to pick his brain, but he was on this ride, and I thought, well, I can't phone him and take over an hour or 2 of his time. So I thought, well, I'll call him up and just say, hey, can I come join you for a while? Because that way he could get away from me. Well, he could get away from me because he was a lot faster than I am. So I joined him for a week through the prairies, and then we had such a great time. I went home and came back and joined him for another week out west.
Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, I didn't know that story. That's a good story. I like it. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me tonight. Just a quick note, if you have any questions for the Q&A, right below the comment box at the bottom, there's a little square with a question mark in it. Please ask your questions in there for Bob. At the end of the show, we'll get to those. They'll be put aside, and then we will ask those questions during that period. So anything throughout the entire show will be asked at the end. So let's hop into it. So, you've got lots of really good titles: food TV host, author, Guinness World Record holder. What came first?
But still a disappointment to his mother.
Really? Really, Bob?
What came first? I went to business school, graduated, started managing an eclectic singer-songwriter by the name of Jane Siberry, and I did that for 12 years. And in the midst of that, Jane went off to England to make a record with Brian Eno, and it was supposed to take a month, and it ended up taking a half a year. And just for fun, as a pet project, I wrote a cookbook, and then I tricked the publisher into publishing it, and it turned into my accidental career.
It's all about trickery, I'm telling you. Trickery and timing. That's how it works. Huh, interesting. So it did start with a cookbook.
It did.
Interesting. That's what I wasn't sure.
A special guest here. Guest Ouija doesn't want to come say hello.
Guests are welcome. It's all good. Cool. So I guess, well, let's talk about the food TV. So, I mean, you didn't own a restaurant. You've never owned a restaurant. You started with the cookbooks, and then you went to be a food TV host. What made you take the leap into food TV following the cookbooks?
Well, once you go down the rabbit hole of writing cookbooks and thinking that you're some form of food persona, you know, TV is kind of bring. Plus, it was fun. It was it was like the wild west in those days.
Right.
As by the fact that I came along with this giant Airstream trailer with 2 8-foot slices of toast on top of it, and somehow managed to trick someone, that being someone at the Food Network, into letting me have a instructional cooking show. And then one thing led to another, and I did 5 seasons of that, and 5 seasons of Glutton for Punishment, and 2 seasons of World's Weirdest Restaurants.
Right. So Glutton for Punishment saw you take on like challenges, right? Competitions and forcing yourself to learn things.
That was such an amazing and humbling experience, because in every episode, 5 days to learn a particularly daunting and often physically challenging food-related skill. And then on the last day, I would be thrown to the wolves and have to either enter a professional competition or rise to the occasion of a specific challenge or attempt to break a Guinness World Record. And we never knew what was going to happen. I mean, I trained, you know, as much as I could. I always had a mentor from either someone who had broken a record or someone who had won the prize or the competition that I was entering, or someone who was just really good at it. And I would train with them and learn as much as I could in 4 days. And then on the last day, I would enter whatever it was, or enter take this challenge on. I never knew if I was going to fall flat on my face as I sort of came out of the starting gate, metaphorically speaking, or if I would do well. And I in 58 episodes, I ran the gamut of
58 episodes,
coming dead last and coming first.
That's awesome. I think it's fun because it made it more real, right?
Oh, for
I don't know.
Sure.
People really think, lots of people have negative impressions on TV being real and not. So it's fun to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was super real. I mean, there were times.
Of course.
You learn that you want to tell a story. So we would often perhaps load the dice throughout the show and raise the stakes and all of that. But when it came down to it, in the actual competition, it was always for reals.
Yeah.
And it was really,
awesome.
I would say, as for something that went on for longer than just like a one night event or whatever, it was probably the greatest experience of my life. It was really so exciting and exhilarating all the time. And again, sort of working without a net was so exciting. And I learned so much from so many amazing people. That was really probably the greatest gift of that show for me, is that I worked with 58 different incredible people from 58 different walks of the food life, and every one of them selflessly shared all of their trade secrets with me.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I think that's one of the best parts about what I do, because I'm a home cook, right? I just got tossed into the industry, but I've been pushing my way through and learning things and cooking and doing all kinds of stuff. And the best part is meeting those selfless people that will share their information with you and learning from them. And Ned's been one of my biggest mentors, right? And he invited me to go to the French embassy and sous chef for him for a big dinner for Good France. And like those kinds of opportunities force you outside of your normal comfort zone, but they're huge learning opportunities. So, you have to be grateful for all those people.
Of course. And you can't, you don't walk out of your comfort zone on a regular basis. You're there's lots of different ways to learn and get ahead, but
of course.
One of the great ones is just,
I like that. Yeah, scare yourself shitless is the best way for sure. I think one of the challenges you did on Glutton for Punishment was like you consumed Guinness beer, for several days.
Yeah, well,
I remember that one.
Challenge were less serious than others. That
Yeah.
one, there was an urban myth that you could
Survive, right?
nothing
Yeah.
but Guinness. So we thought, well, what the heck? Let's go see if it's true. And so I went to Dublin and attempted to live on nothing but Guinness and water. I was allowed water
Oh, that's good.
for 5 days, so for a work week, and
Right.
at the same time, just to make it a little more challenging, I had a protagonist who was doing everything in his power. His name was Fiechno Brainon. He was actually a member of the Hothouse Flowers and an amazing guy, hilarious guy. And he was doing everything in his power to either lure me or trick me or whatever he could do to make me eat something. And I used all of my willpower to not.
To just drink beer and water.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a good one. So let's hop into World's Weirdest Restaurants. So I remember watching that one, and I remember watching the episode where you ate out of mini toilets. I remember seeing that. What were some of the craziest things that you've seen in that series?
Sorry, that doesn't qualify as crazy enough?
Oh, that is very crazy. That's just the one that I remember, but there's got to be other ones, right?
Oh yeah, there are all sorts of crazy episodes. Gosh, let me think. When we traveled literally all around the world, and it was funny because so-called weird restaurants, which were really more eccentric restaurants,
right,
broke down into 2 categories. There were the ma and pa restaurants, so to speak, run by like one very eccentric person, and then there were lots of corporate restaurants. When we got to Asia, especially in Japan, there are a lot of chains of restaurants. The chain owns several different theme restaurants. Each one is a different theme.
Right.
For example, in Alice in Water.
Alice in Waterland?
Yeah.
Beside Alice in Guinness Land?
That was a culinary Freudian slip.
Yeah, that's good.
And then there was one that was in a prison and all sorts of crazy places.
Yeah,
but I love the ones run by eccentric.
Yeah.
This one guy in Tokyo who dressed up in all these crazy outfits, like frog outfits and stuff like that, and served us. But I would have to say the all-time greatest episode and experience was going to an izakaya just outside of Tokyo and being served beer by actual live macaque. While at the same time eating fantastic izakaya food. That truly was fantastic.
Right. I remember that episode too, actually.
Restaurant had beer serving monkeys that they could kind of just, dine off that. They wouldn't have to focus on the food. But the food was really fantastic.
I guess they understood that experience and food also matters, right?
I learned how to make karagi there, which is the Japanese of fried chicken thighs.
Yeah. Karagi's delicious. There's a couple spots here that are doing Japanese style karagi. It's awesome.
Right.
Cool. And then your Food Network pioneering show was the Surreal Gourmet.
Who could forget
What's that?
I said, who could forget the Toastermobile?
Who could forget the Toastermobile? That's like your copyright right there. Your brand. Everybody knows the Toastermobile. Lots of comments.
I have a bumper sticker on my car, and it says my other car is a Toastermobile.
Nice. I like that. So that show, you went into you cooked recipes, right? You made
that was pretty well an instructional cooking show.
Yeah.
Most of the food that I was making had a bit of a surreal twist to it, and I would cook a like high concept theme meal for a group of people. If they were ballerinas, I would do the cliche thing and cook, like make everything pink, or if it was firemen, everything would be flambéed or like that.
Right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's a great show. I think that it's actually funny. I stayed in the hotel room that you designed, right? That's actually when we started to talk last year, at the Gladstone Hotel in Toronto, the Surreal Gourmet room, which I guess you helped design. Is that right?
I did design it and fabricated all the art in the room.
Right. You did it all, right? Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's a pretty cool room. I stayed there for 3 nights, and I'd like find different things, and marshmallow pillows and is very cool. Very cool. It's a cool hotel that they have different designed rooms by different people. I like that whole concept. Really a good platform for artists, right?
It's a fantastic hotel, and it's an anchor for the neighborhood, and a real it's the center of a really interesting art community in Parkdale.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just kind of quickly hit on your cookbooks. So the latest cookbook is called Glutton for Pleasure. Um, that's the sixth one, I believe.
Yes, but I have a new that came out several years ago, and that was
Right.
my best of album.
Right.
But I have a new book that is coming out in October on Penguin Random House Appetite, and
Nice.
it's called FLAVORBOMB, and it's a
Flavor
book
bomb.
about building big bombastic flavors from common ingredients, but using all sorts of tips and tricks and hacks and things I've learned in my travels and from all the mentors I had on Glutton for Punishment.
Nice.
From you know, walking in the back door, small little restaurants and food stalls and asking a lot of questions. And I've just learned so much in my 25 years.
Yeah,
We
nice.
had an offline discussion about, am I a chef?
Yeah.
I asked, what is a chef?
And I loved your reply. I actually loved it. I was like, I like that, right? Because it's true.
Well, we've all learned in different ways.
100%. Yeah.
And, some people go to culinary school. Some people start working in a restaurant as a dishwasher and work their way up and can end up being the executive chef. And in my case, I cobbled together this culinary education, but it's been a 30-year journey.
Yeah.
There's still a hell of a lot I don't know, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think that we can always learn, right? Even an executive chef is always learning about new things, new techniques, and new ingredients.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's true. And I actually, when you replied that, what is a chef? I sat there and chuckled for a bit, and I'm like, that's so true, right? It's so true. And there's lots of different people think different things about what is a chef and who is a chef. And I really enjoyed your reply. I didn't really like the picture that you sent of me and Andrew's head together, but
Well, that was so funny.
it was funny.
You should explain what happened or what I did.
Well, yeah, so basically there was, if you tuned in last Sunday, I had Andrew Zimmern on the show, and there was lots of comments about us both being bald and both having glasses, and that must have been a prerequisite for the show. And people kept saying that it was my dad, we were brothers. So then Bob saw the picture of me and Andrew one above the other, and it kind of melded our heads together. And it looked like that could be our offspring or something that we created together.
Well, it was sort of the top of your head and the bottom, but there were two sets of glasses. So
yeah,
drinks, and you were looking at both of you. It would be sort of what you'd see.
Yeah, I laughed a lot. I appreciated that one too. So on the new cookbook that you mentioned, I think the recipe you provided is from that cookbook, right?
That is, yes. I did that on purpose because it's a puttanesca recipe, which everybody makes.
Love puttanesca, yeah.
Most people make, but the whole concept of my book is to take recipes, things we're accustomed to making, as well as things that everybody may not be accustomed to making, but really goosing up the flavor. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And so puttanesca is a perfect example of a recipe that most people make the same way over and over and over again. And there's several little tricks and hacks that you can do that can really add a lot more flavor. So for example, if the recipe calls for 6 cloves of garlic, hold back 2 of those and put them in at the very end. So you get the sweetness of the garlic that you've sauteed and then the bite of the raw garlic. If you're using anchovies and you've got anchovies in a tin with some oil in it, use the oil because that's beautifully infused with lots of anchovy flavor. I know it's not typical, but I like to use fried breadcrumbs, top all my pastas with fried breadcrumbs. And so that's another thing, it just adds another dimension, adds some more texture to it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Bob provided a recipe. It's puttanesca pasta la bomba with rustic fried breadcrumbs. Thanks for providing that. So that's going to be in his cookbook, but it's also now available at mattbeausoleil.com. So I'll be sharing the link later, so you can actually check it out and get a preview of that recipe. Thanks for sharing that with me, Bob.
Yeah, you bet. And I think that my cookbook's actually available for pre-sale on Amazon.
Oh, it's awesome. Okay.
Called FLAVORBOMB.
All right.
Subtitle is A Rogue Guide. You're hearing it here for the first time. I don't think.
There you go.
A rogue guide to making everything taste better.
Well, I'll share the link to the cookbook as well when I share the recipe then. Cool.
That would make rogue.
True. All right. So thanks for that. So again, just a reminder, if you have any questions for the Q&A, which is going to come after our next subject, which is going to be the current state of the industry, please ask your questions in the comment box, or the little box with the question mark beside the comment box down below. So, thanks for sharing all those great stories, and lots of the people that were commenting on the posts, and some people can't make it to the live events, right, depending on the night it is. So I publish these after, which is when I get lots of views, right, and people want to go and listen to the show again. So thanks for answering all those questions, because lots of people message me, they're like, oh, the toaster mobile, and lots of people were very interested in the show, but lots of people message me, they're like, oh, I can't make it tonight, so anyways, so that's why I publish it later, so that, just so you know. So let's hop into the current state of the industry. So in Canada, we're seeing some crazy stuff, also in the US, obviously. Now you're seeing some reopenings in certain states, which is, who knows what's going to happen, right? Everybody's just kind of trying to see what's going to happen. However, in Canada, 98,000 of our restaurants, 10% of them have already said that they're not going to reopen after this. It's already destroyed their bottom line, and they're done, right? Nearly 2/3 of our industry, 800,000 employees, are currently out of work. We see restaurants kind of converting themselves into takeout restaurants, delivery restaurants, and then they're paying exorbitant fees with delivery services because they're not set up to be a delivery restaurant. They don't have delivery drivers, and so there's lots of changes going on, and lots of people are trying to keep people employed, because some people aren't eligible for employment insurance. It's a really, really trying time in our industry. I guess I just kind of wanted to get your general thoughts on like what's going on, and how do you see things changing? Like, I know that in the States, some of the states are now loosening up a little bit of their measures, which haven't included restaurants to this point. But what kind of impact are you seeing down there?
I think it's pretty similar. I mean, I don't think anything's that different here.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, and I've never run a restaurant, but it's been tough running a restaurant. It was tough running a restaurant before the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And so I just can't imagine it. And I mean, the restaurants now the restaurants that are trying to stay in business, have so many issues with getting stuff from their suppliers, having to deal with their landlords. They're trying as hard as they can to keep as many of their staff as possible. But my heart goes out to every restaurateur and to everybody, every cook and line chef and prep cook and server who works there. There has been a lot of talk, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself, but the model itself seems to be a little bit broken in terms of the way servers, the front of house and the back works together. And I was a server when I was in college and stuff. And even though I was a server making server money, even then, like, this is a long time ago too, even then it struck me as really wrong that the chefs were working so hard.
Yeah, I know.
And the servers were just sort of floating in and out. Now, I know also it is hard being a server, but I do believe that it's a system that somehow doesn't function the way it could or should in an equitable way. And I think that that's one of the things that's probably going to change. Because, when there's such huge change, a lot of things can shake out.
Yeah, yeah.
That, weren't necessarily the cause of that, but the root cause. But like as the floor is shifting,
Yeah.
A lot of other things can sort of move at the same time.
Yeah, as things explode, whether it's positive or negative, it's a rebuilding time, right?
Totally. But you know,
Yeah.
I'm really an observer. I'm kind of in the showbiz side of cooking, and
Yeah.
I love food, and I have a lot of chef friends, but I don't really have. That's not where my experience lies.
Yeah, no, exactly. How can people, how do you think people can support the industry? How have you been doing that, or what would be the best way to do that? Do you have any ideas that you guys have been doing down there, or people have been doing down there? That's what I'm trying to I'm trying to flesh out different ideas that people have, because everybody says different answers, right, to these things when I have these interviews, and it's just kind of interesting, right? Because some people are like, well, order takeout locally, and then I've had some people say, well, too much takeout is also really hard on us right now. We're trying to just do some, and then some people are saying order from us directly, don't order from Uber Eats, and then some people are like, we don't have a system to order, so order from Uber Eats. It's crazy. It's all over the place, right? So generally what I've been doing is I contact my local restaurant and ask them what if I'm going to support them or order, is I'll ask them, hey, I'm thinking of getting some food from you guys tonight. What would be the best way for me to do that? That would be the best for you.
Sure. Well,
Right?
that's definitely a no-brainer. And if you are going to order from restaurants, I mean, listen, I'm sure the delivery services are working very hard too. But
Oh yeah.
when you want to support your specific and hopefully local restaurateur, you definitely want to see if you can just go pick it up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this whole crisis is kind of going to help people kind of see and understand the value of local restaurants. There's going to be lots of restrictions probably on travel and such in the next little while, and even between provinces and such right now. I live in Quebec, and we're not supposed to go to Ontario, right, which is just across the bridge, which is kind of interesting, but it's forcing people to order takeout from restaurants here in Gatineau. And I think it's great because they're discovering restaurants they didn't even know existed, and it's great and it's crazy. But I've had restaurateurs in Ottawa tell me that people that never went to their restaurant have ordered takeout 4 or 5 times from their restaurant because they tried it and they're like, wow, this place is amazing. So it's kind of interesting how it works, right? And if you're able to kind of stay alive and stay active right now as a restaurant, I think there's opportunities to kind of grow your reputation. And then one of the other conversations we had was this conversion to takeout and delivery, is that not every restaurant's food lends itself well to being put in a container and eaten 20 minutes later.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I've been talking to some restaurateurs. They've asked me, like, what do we do? Like, how do we put this in a container? I'm like, put it in a container, put it on the counter, and eat it in 20 minutes. What does it taste like? Is it soggy? Is it, and maybe that recipe is not good for delivery or takeout.
Yeah, it's like airplane food.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't know what the solution to that is either. I mean, it's tough. And you know what it is? It's like no one expected this, and no one really has the answers to any of it. Of course, we're all seeing a lot of people, cooking for themselves and their families and rediscovering food, and that unfortunately doesn't help the restaurants at all. But it certainly is a lovely thing, and you can buy bread everywhere, but for love or money, you can't find flour or yeast. And it's the beautiful thing that people are baking as a source of comfort.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
And baking, hopefully, people who have families are baking with their families. And I mean, I hate to say it, and unfortunately, per this conversation, the restaurants are the ones that are taking the brunt of the hit. But and this doesn't mitigate that at all, but it is beautiful to see families cooking together and people getting more in touch with food and all of that. Well,
like you said, nobody could ever have seen this coming, and it's crazy, right? All our kids are at home. There's no school right now. It's people are doing homeschooling here. In Ontario, they've got huge curriculum set up for homeschooling now, and teachers are doing video lessons, and like that whole flip of a dime is just crazy. And like families are trying to keep their jobs, working from home, trying to feed their families, and having the kids home all day is obviously a challenge. But like, I know that we've been making sushi with the kids. The kids love sushi. So we've been making sushi and rolling sushi and making the sushi rice and whatever traditionally, and they've been having a blast. So we've had sushi like once a week. We've been making sushi, and the kids love it. but the kids love to learn, right? We've made banana muffins, we've made all kinds of different recipes. So it's a great time to kind of reconnect and rebuild, both family time and for the restaurants, right? And unfortunately, some of the restaurants that, the math of a restaurant has always been complicated and the profit margins were always really bad. And people need to understand that. And I think that this kind of crisis might also educate people on the value of a restaurant and the value of food and how much it costs, right? If you're going to go and make something similar to what you're going to eat at the restaurant, you're going to realize that it's expensive,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So I think that maybe there's some education and some fact finding that people will do that will actually help the industry. Hopefully, right? We're not really sure what's going to happen with that one. So in Canada, we have a couple movements like savehospitalityca and onetable. So yeah, I guess basically we don't know what the future holds. We don't know we're going to see what happens in the U.S. right now because they're starting to loosen up some of the measures, and see how that works out. I know there's talks of in the coming weeks for measures to be loosened up here. What does that mean for the restaurant industry? And those will kind of be discussions that I have on future episodes of this show. But yeah, I guess that's all for that. Do you have anything you wanted to add on that topic, or?
No, again, just my heart just goes out to
Yeah.
all the restaurateurs, and it's certain businesses are booming, and unfortunately, the restaurant business is just getting killed.
Yeah, and I think I want to shout out to all the restaurants too that are supporting our healthcare workers and our primary, like our police, fire, ambulance. Lots of the restaurants are feeding those primary people that are taking care of us, and so shout out to you guys. Shout out to all our healthcare workers and all of our people that are still working to help keep us able to go to the grocery store, able to get takeout food, and able to get healthcare, right? It's a crazy time in this world. So let's hop into the viewer Q&A.
Okay.
All right. So the first one I got here. What was your hardest Guinness record to achieve?
Well, the very first.
Oh, I was gonna say, can we just? There's 7 of them, right?
8, but who's counting?
Oh, well, the eight then.
I had one. I did 7 on my show. So most pancakes made in an hour. Most Caesar salads made in an hour. The world's largest bowl of salsa.
Yeah, that's right.
Fastest time to peel 50 pounds of onions. The most individual grains of rice picked up with a pair of chopsticks in 3 minutes. Like that.
Oh, yeah. So what one was the hardest?
Well, the onion peeling was kind of hard because it was. I mean, they were all hard, obviously.
It was really sad, right?
They were all real records, and the onion record had stood for like 30 years.
Wow.
And I had to wield a razor sharp knife with wild abandon and peel onions as quickly as I could. They all had their challenges. I really had nightmares before I started the season because we did 6 of them in a season, as a season of 6.
Right,
as a
right.
fact. And I had nightmares that I was going to be shut out and go 0 for 6, and I felt that would be very humiliating. But I'm pig-headed and very tenacious, and for better or for worse. And I just put my head down and did my best, and it was fun, and it was very exhilarating.
So it was challenging, most challenging because of just the fact that you had to have you were wielding a knife trying to go as fast as you could.
Yeah, and that's a lot of onions to peel.
How many onions did you peel?
Well, it's like you can pick. The larger onions are more difficult, but the smaller one, if you choose smaller, it was 50 pounds. So you choose.
50 pounds. Sorry, yeah.
You could choose them any way you wanted. You could have small onions or big onions. So I went for the big onions, and so it was they were big. It was about, I think, 25 or 30 onions, but I did it in 2 minutes and 37 seconds or something like that.
Wow, that's crazy.
I think I knocked 20 or 30 seconds off the record.
Were your eyes burning? Were you crying? I don't remember.
Tears of joy.
Tears of joy. Yeah, nothing worse than wielding a knife with burning eyes from onions. I don't know.
Oh yeah, well that was the whole idea, is to challenge.
That's funny.
They were never supposed to be easy. Nothing in Glutton for Punishment was supposed to be easy. In fact, I was a producer on the show, and we would, all of us would come up with these ideas for episodes, and usually they were thrown out because they just weren't challenging enough.
Right.
It was rare that it would be like, well, that's too challenging. You're never gonna, we'll never do that. It was not enough pain.
Yeah, not enough entertainment value. That's funny. All right, what is your favorite dish to make, and what is your favorite food?
Oh, that's such a hard one. Does burgundy count as a food?
Yeah, that's up to you.
Well, if I think about it, a friend of mine used to work for Weber Grills, and her name is Elizabeth Carmel, and she went off and started working on her own. And we had done a project when she was at Weber, where I'd written a small grilled pizza booklet that was given away for free with every Weber that was sold in that particular summer, during that summer. Cool. And then we went on to write a book called Pizza on the Grill. Huh. Came out about 12 years ago, but continues to sell very well. And you make pizza on your own backyard barbecue without a pizza stone or anything. So you pick the dough up and you just put it right down on the grate.
Nice. Nice sound effects too.
When it gets nice and brown at the bottom, you flip it, and then you change your settings to indirect heat at that point.
Okay.
You put on your sauce, your toppings that are all cooked at that point, and your cheese, and you close the lid, and the circulating heat browns the bottom. So you end up with a crispy top and a crispy bottom. And because of the nature of that sort of smoky, crispy, crusty crust, it becomes very rustic, and it allows you to put on heavier toppings. So you can use bolder cheese. So not just like tomato sauce and a smooth mozzarella, but you can use very bold sauces like onion marmalade or roasted garlic puree.
Right.
You can use all sorts of toppings, and then even big cheeses like blue cheeses and stuff like that.
Right.
So here, my wife and I make grilled pizza fairly frequently.
Interesting.
So I would say that would be one of my top favorite things
to make. What is your favorite food item?
But to eat.
No, there's two questions. It was what is the favorite thing to make, and then what is your favorite food item?
Well, if I look at my refrigerator, the things that I always have some Parmesan cheese. I love the Italian ingredients, right? So Parmesan, olive oil, anchovies. But recently, it's interesting because I just finished this book, and there were, it takes like a year to write a book, and then there's like 6 months of editing that's been going on after the fact, and copy editing and design changes and all this. So over the course of a year and a half, you could have started the process with like I have a section of my book where I list my 15 favorite ingredients, and then a year and a half later, it's like, oh, there's a couple new ones I have, but it's too late to add them to the list. So we've been using a lot of miso in the house and cooking with miso. A new favorite recipe is just taking some miso and some butter and mixing them together, and then roasting sweet potatoes and just slathering a little miso butter on the sweet potatoes. Fantastic. Or making miso popcorn with Parmesan. So miso's become a new favorite thing.
I'm gonna have to get some miso. I haven't used miso really in my household. So.
Well, I hadn't either, but the nice thing is it lasts for like 2 years.
Wow.
So it's a great little, and it's not very expensive at all. It's like $7 for a tub, and a tablespoon goes a long way.
What's the ratio for butter and miso?
2 parts butter, 1 part miso.
Okay, cool.
And so like a tablespoon of butter, a half a tablespoon of miso, and a big roasted sweet potato, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I like eggplant with miso, so interesting. Cool. All right. Well, thanks. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to thank Bob for joining me tonight. thanks for sharing your stories, and thanks for sharing your thoughts on what's going on, and sharing your recipe. So again, the puttanesca pasta la bamba is now available on my website, mattbeausoleil.com, and Bob's new book, FLAVORBOMB, is available for pre-sale.
FLAVORBOMB.
Oh yeah, that's not what I said the wrong thing. FLAVORBOMB. Why did I write FLAVORBOMB? I wrote that down when we were talking before. I don't know.
You know, you were pulling together the past with the Toastamobile. And
that's right. I was just blending your stories all together. So FLAVORBOMB is available for pre-sale.
That could be the name of my autobiography. Who knows?
There you go. There you go. You can take it. You can take it. I don't need it. You got it. So FLAVORBOMB is now available for pre-order, which is going to be released in October, you said, right?
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully in October. So thanks again for joining us, Bob. It was a pleasure.
Total pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And to all of you, thanks for joining us tonight. I invite you back tomorrow night, Monday, April 20th, where I'll be joined by the CHOT Canada champion and executive chef of Legend Catering at the Moncton Coliseum, my friend Chef Matt Pennell. So in closing, stay home, stay safe, and remember, we're all in this together. Cheers.